All right. Another piece of instrumentation that is, or another tool that is very useful in the laboratory and that we'd like you to learn how to use is called the micropipetter. The micropipetter is called a micropipetter because generally it's measured in microliters. Microliters, 1 times 10 to the 6th of a liter, 1 times 10 to the minus 6th of a liter, and minus 1/3 of a milliliter. In other words, there are 1,000 microliters in 1 milliliter. So this can measure between 100 and 1,000 microliters, or 0.1 and 1 milliliters. All right? On top here I have a lock. If it's this way, it's locked. You can feel it when it's locked, and it's hard to turn. And when it's unlocked, it's easy to turn. And I turn this knob here to adjust it to the value that I want to deliver. All right? So if I would like to deliver 1 milliliter, for instance, I'm going to make sure it's unlocked. Then I can turn this, and here we have 3 numbers. We have a red number and 2 black numbers. The red number is before the decimal place in terms of the number of milliliters, and the 2 black numbers afterwards are after the decimal place. So right now we're at 0.56 milliliters, which is 560 microliters. All right? So I can go up to 1.00 to deliver 1 milliliter. All right, there is 1.00 milliliters, which is 1,000 microliters. Now I can add or lock this up like that, and I have a solution, or I have a sample, or my micropipetter ready to deliver a liquid. Okay? To work with this micropipetter, I need to have what's called a tip. Okay? Over here we have some tips. All right. This is a box of tips. You can see here a little residue from some tape that used to be on the lid, connecting the lid and the base of this box of tips. That tape, when it's there, right now it's not there, it's been taken away, but there's a little bit left over. When the tape is there, it's an indication that what's inside is sterile, or that is trying to be kept sterile, meaning no bacteria or no foreign contaminants have entered into that region. It has been autoclaved. That's how we sterilize it. You can look up that word, autoclave. All right? So if I want to get a tip out without introducing bacteria, or at least minimizing the amount of bacteria that's introduced, I would be wearing gloves, and I would open it quickly, get my tip, and then pull it out like that. All right? Now, this one is not a sterile container because it does not have the tape on it. So I'm not too concerned about it, but still it's good practice to minimize dirt or bugs from getting into your tips. Okay? So I have my tip here. I can also, especially because we're not working with sterile stuff, I can verify that I have a good seal rate. Now, all of the solution should only touch the tip. It's not going to come into this micropipetter anywhere, come in contact with it, or get into the apparatus and damage it anyway. All right? I'm going to, now I can measure out 1 milliliter of solution, right? So I'll go get some water here that I can measure out. This is water, so it has a density of 1 gram for every milliliter. So if I put 1 milliliter of this on the scale, it should weigh 1 gram. So I have a weigh boat here again, and I'm going to open the lid, place the weigh boat on gently, close the lid, zero it, tare it. All right, so now it's at 0, and now I'm going to add 1 milliliter. And the way I use the micropipetter to add 1 milliliter is this plunger here can be depressed, and I can press it down until I feel a spot of resistance. That volume from top to there is 1 milliliter of volume in here, and it will suck up 1 milliliter of water when this is in the water. All right? If I continue past that point, I can push it down further, that is to dispel any extra water that's hanging around. But the 1 milliliter is just from the top to the first point of resistance. So, for example, I always depress it first and then place it into liquid. I don't blow bubbles with it, right? So I depress it first, place it into the liquid, and I slowly let it come up. If it comes up quickly, then the solution will squirt up fast and get into the mechanism and ruin the micropipette. All right? So now, I'll do that again. Well, so I've sucked up solution. You'll watch I can deliver it by depressing the plunger, and at the end, if there's a little bit left over, I can press the plunger past the point. All right? So I'll do that again. I depress it, put it into solution, slowly bring it up, let go so that my thumb is not resting on it and pushing some water out, and there I have my volume. Okay? So now I'm going to deliver it on the weigh boat here, and we're going to see how much 1 milliliter of this solution weighs. So this milliliter of solution is weighing 0.983. That's a little low, but we'll see if we can get a better one this time. All right, we'll zero it again. So 0.988, a little bit better, but still about 20 microliters off. It's a small percentage off, but it is off a little bit. All right, we want to encourage you to learn how to use the micropipetter to treat it well. Again, if I want to change the volume, I open the lock, unlock it, or the brake, and I can dial up whatever volume I want to dial up. There are different kinds of micropipetters, different volumes. We have some that go from 100 to 1,000, some that go from 20 to 200, some that go from 1 microliter to 1/2 of a microliter or 1/10 of a microliter. So there are different sizes, and they don't all use the same tips because they differ in size here, so they have different tips. So if you can't get a tip to fit, it's because you're using the wrong micropipetter with the wrong tips. Okay, was there anything else we wanted to talk about the micropipetters? Okay. All right,
folks, so what we're going to do here is walk you through how to make a chart using Microsoft Excel. And what I'm going to just say as a preface is that there are several different versions of Excel, some for Mac, some for PC. You can actually do something very similar to this with Google Documents if that's your preference. I have Excel 2007. It's one of the newer Microsoft versions, but either way, this should work in just about any version of Excel that you have. The menus might be a little bit different, but you should be fine to figure it out on your own, even though it might be a little bit different. So all we're going to do to get started is open up Excel. Okay, and I'm just going to make some data up and punch it in. I want to punch it in 2 columns, and the first column is going to be the extension of the spring in meters, and then the other column is going to be the force in the spring, newtons. And I'm just going to make some data up. The first one's 0, 0. This guy is 0.01 for 10 newtons, and this guy is 0.021 for 20 newtons, and this guy is 0.02 or 34 for 30 newtons, and this guy is 0.044 for 40 newtons, and one more we'll do 0.053 for 50 newtons. Okay, so now that you have your data in there, all you have to do is go ahead and select that data by clicking on it and dragging a box across it. And then usually there's either a menu at the top or a thing here that says Insert. So click that, and then you might have to do Chart or something like that after this, and then you want to select the scatter plot, and I like to do the curvy one with the dots in it. So that's a good one. And there we go, there's a plot of our thing. You'll notice that it says some stuff that we don't want. So first of all, I don't want this. I'm just going to click on it and press delete. Gone. And to change some of the stuff that goes on in this, usually you need to right click on the chart somewhere and click on one of these options to change the stuff. So what I want to do is format chart area maybe, or let's see. Nope, not this particular one, but actually sometimes you can just type right in the box itself. So if I want to change the title of this, let's say it's Spring A, you can just type right in there. And if you want to do something to the axis, you can click on the axis, go to Format Axis, and then probably give it a name somewhere in these options section. You got to dig through it yourself, or you can just write it out by hand, whatever you want to do. But more importantly, the whole objective of this experiment was to figure out the slope of this line. So that's what we want to do. We want to figure out the slope. So the best way to do that is to click the line itself. Make sure you, not the plot area, but that exact, now I've got the line selected. And then I'm going to click on, for me it comes under the layout bar, but you might have to go back up to the chart menu up top and go down to add trend line. But somewhere there's a menu that says add trend line. Here's a trend line for me, and I want a linear trend line. Okay, and then I'm going to click on that trend line and right click on it and go to Format Trend Line, which is basically just the options for the trend line. And I want to do Display Equation on Chart and Display R² value on chart. And I'll explain what those are in a second. So now we have this equation and this R² thing. This equation is a linear equation, which is good for us because we have a linear function here, and you can see the slope of that line as if this was y equals mx plus b. The n is 918.76. So that's our k for Spring A here. And this R² value represents how close does this black line fit the data, the blue line that we actually got in the experiment. And you can see as long as R² is pretty close to 1, then everything is legitimate. So this number right here, 918.76, that's my answer. That's K. So that should be pretty clear on how to set it up. Again, it might be different for different versions of Excel, but that's the general idea. If your data is out of order, let's say it looks something like this, suddenly your graph might be kind of crazy, and that would be a bad thing, although this actually is fine. Let's see if we can make it crazy. Yeah, it's doing something crazy. You can't really see it there, but make sure that your data is in order. So if extension is always increasing, so should the force be. And it shouldn't be increasing and decreasing in a weird way. Make sure it goes from low to high or from high to low, either one. Okay, that should be pretty helpful. You might need to mess around with it for a little while, but hopefully you can get it done for me. Let's stop the video. Escape. How do you stop it? Who knows? There we go.